Well, again, with any election, there's going to be very specific things on the ballot that sway you and grab you and you care about most. The question is, what are those things, right? Well, since we have established, again, that the Bible is our final authority, it is therefore really not just about what I like or who I like or how I feel or what we think or what we value. The better question is, what does God value, right? What does God think? Because there's a goal in every election, and it's this. The goal in any election is for our values to align with God's values. My values, my feelings, my opinions, they can't always be trusted, man. They're ever changing. That's why it's called an opinion. It can go up and down. It's over here, it's over there. But God remains the same. And so what is big on his heart in this season? What might be big on his heart on the ballot? And I want to get into some of those things now. And I know people don't want church to get too political, and I totally get that, right? Church is a place where all people are welcome, left side, right side, everywhere in between. Unity is our goal, and that's all I talked about in the last video. We made that very, very clear. And I feel, my conviction, we must address that first. We got to talk about that before we go into any specific topic. And to be honest, I'm most fired up about the last video, all right? I know many of you might see the word abortion or something else, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to go to that, right? I'm going to skip the unity one. Let's go to the hot one. But as a pastor, I'm just more fired up about unity than how you're going to vote, right? Unity over the gospel and people knowing Jesus, together worshiping him. That for just a moment, especially as we come into the church place, we worship God. We witness out in the world, and in that moment, we can put our ballot down. We can put our opinion down. Why? Because there's a much more important goal, worshiping God, witnessing people toward God, and that's my ultimate desire. So big thanks, right, for anyone who prioritized part 6 before getting to part 7. Matt, now, do I care about these topics too? I do, because the Bible does, right? Meaning it's directly spiritual, the things we're about to talk about. See, when you look at a ballot as a believer, we must take a look to see where what's political overlaps with what's spiritual. When what's political or what's being voted on is clearly addressed in the Bible. And here's the first one, number 1, all right? I have several we're going to throw out. Here's number 1 for this video, the value of human life. The value of human life. You know, I'll never forget June 4th, 2022. That was the day that Roe v. Wade was overturned in our nation. It was a Friday afternoon, which is my day off. I was at home hanging out with my wife, and this news broke, and I didn't even have to watch it on the news, right? Because texts and calls started to stream in as many people in our church were asking, what are we going to say on Sunday? And my first thought after being asked that was, well, I have a message prepared on leadership I really like, I was excited for my message, but that message didn't seem relevant anymore, at least not to preach it, but instead to model it. The truth is, I was proud of our church because they weren't asking, are we going to address it? They were asking, how? How are we going to address it? I was in a group chat with some pastors who were asking, are you going to say anything, right? Are you going to say anything? And many were saying no, right? Better not touch that. And listen, I totally get that. By the way, these things are really hard to do, and I don't always get it right. We just do our best. Since COVID, being a political pundit has been added to the expectation of the role of a pastor, right under being a speaker, a theologian, a counselor, a CEO, an accountant, a land developer, a manager, so on and so forth. These things are really difficult. And I have a lot of grace for pastors, even in election season like this, people who choose to say things, people who choose not to say things. That's probably because I'm a pastor. It's easy for me to give grace to other pastors. That makes sense. But it becomes very challenging as a church leader to not have in your head the convictions you think you're supposed to have, or the convictions many people expect you to have to please people, rather than sharing the convictions you actually have. The ones that God's actually put on your heart. That takes a lot of courage to stand up and share those, right? What's God actually speaking to you and what you believe that the Bible says. But all the way back on that Saturday night after the overturn, my heart was on fire. And so I got there Sunday morning to our church at all 5 services. I sat on a stool. I pushed my groovy message on leadership to the side, and I just shared from my heart. And what we talked about is how the devil has used abortion in our country in very demonic ways. Some 60 million abortions have taken place in our country since Roe v. Wade's original ruling in 1973. And why as a Christian do I care about that? Because the Bible teaches us to value human life. See, what I love about God is he doesn't just tell us the what, he tells us the why. Why do we value human life? You know why? Because we were all made in the image of God. Genesis 1:27, meaning no matter what you do with your life, no matter what you believe in your life, you cannot erase the image of God on your life. Therefore, every life is valuable. And listen, some of us need to hear that, right? In a heated political season, because sometimes we get so filled with fear propaganda and hate propaganda, we forget this. See, some of us get so wrapped up in politics, and politics can offer us a sense of belonging, which is something that we all want, right? To be a part of a group and a part of a party and a part of a movement. We all need to belong. But the problem is that with politics is often politics offers a belonging based on hating, a belonging based on vilifying, that you're in if you hate them or are against them. And that's so anti the heart of God, right? What we need is some old school tolerance. Old school tolerance used to be that we could disagree with one another, but I still hold you as an image bearer, right? So you're not just an opinion bearer, you're an image bearer. Meaning I'm not here, right, to look at your different opinions and therefore vilify you and hate you and come against you. I'm supposed to come toward you. I'm supposed to be for you, and by nature, value your life, even if I can't make sense of your crazy opinions, right? Like the things you believe. I don't know that I agree, but listen, we got to put image over opinion. Image over opinion. Every life is valuable, born and unborn. And back to the unborn, Psalm 139. God created your innermost being. He knit you together in your mother's womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Jeremiah 1:5, before you were formed in your mother's womb, God knew you. He set you apart. He ordained you, which is a big Bible word. He appointed you for a specific calling. Think about how personal that is. Before you were born, before you were formed in the womb, before you saw the world, before you cried and kept your parents up at night, God knew your name. He knew who you'd become. He had plans for you, man. Good plans for your life. Why do we value life? Because God does. And as a church, we knew we couldn't just talk about it, we had to be about it. And so in that season, we started what we now have, our Abundant Life ministry of our church, which helps families, mothers, children face crisis pregnancies. We partner with CAPS, which is a Christian pregnancy clinic here in town that helps 94% of families choose life for their babies. We were able to give them a $100,000 gift to help them start another clinic in the La Jolla area where we are near the La Jolla location of our church. It's been an honor to partner with them in the great work that they do. And although we celebrate that, we get excited about that, what we did not do back in 2022 and what we don't do today is parade that and wave that in people's faces. We didn't have a parade, we didn't do a victory lap, we didn't brag, we didn't say, ha, got you. And I think there's a lot of that in church today over political things, right? The arrogance and the pride and the smirking of some people in the church when they get a political win. Listen, what is that, church? There might be nothing that bothers me more than that, right? Is if we're here to beat people. And listen, if we're here to beat people, we missed it. The smirking, the smart comments, the I got yous. You know what that is? That's giving the truth of Jesus without the tone of Jesus. And let me tell you this, when you give the truth of Jesus without the tone of Jesus, that's not Jesus. Jesus is compassionate, and he's merciful, and he's humble, and he's caring, and he's not here to beat anyone. He's here to help and heal everyone. He's not here to parade in people's faces that I beat you, not people, especially not over this topic, an issue that affects so many carrying hurt and shame and pain and decisions made. Statistics show that in our country, 1 in 4 women will have or have had an abortion. Let me just speak to that for just a moment. If you have had an abortion or if that's affected your family, can I tell you, there is a death that defines your life, and it's not the one of your unborn child. It's not the one of somebody you love in your family, but it is the death of Jesus Christ who died for you, who loves you and who calls you his. Therefore, he says, come on in. Welcome to the family. If I'm welcome here, you're welcome here. And the good news for me is if you're welcome here, I'm welcome here because I'm a mess too. And yet in the middle of being a mess, God values my life. Therefore, we value all human life. And so as a believer, as I approach the ballot, one of the first things I think about, that I look to, that I value, which candidate will do the best at protecting human life. And you might not agree with that, and that's okay. I still love you. I still hope we can do church and life together. That's the point. Image over opinion. And we'll get into some of the other topics as well in the next video.